We are not ready to start the meeting yet, but I would love to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Lockett and her students, Jessica Kim and Jeremiah Calloway, for those beautiful renditions of Impromptu Number 3 by Schubert and the Jazz Toccata. Thank you all so very much. I will say that these instruments are so temperamental and so precious. We do want to give them the opportunity to move them. The record, I will go ahead and call our meeting to order since 4 o'clock is our start time. We will give them the opportunity, though, to secure this instrument before we complete our meeting. Continuing, we have 5 of our board members present this afternoon. I declare that a quorum is present. At this time, I would like to move the approval of the agenda. You have seen the revised agenda. I seek a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam President, I move that we approve the agenda.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that we approve the printed agenda. At this time, we will receive as information from Mr. Arthur Watts a presentation of our fiscal year 2025 budget revised. Thank you, Mr. Watts. Is it on?
Okay. There are also certain things we have to keep in mind. There are certainly certain legality issues that we have to abide by. There are laws and various rules set forth by the U.S. Department of Education, the Alabama State Legislature, the Alabama State Department of Education, COGNIA, formerly Advanced Ed, and also there are certain funding matches that we must be in boundaries of. For example, the State Foundation Program, which is our largest source of revenue, requires us to do what is called a fund match. That means that we will have to put up over $34.5 million of our local revenues in order to participate in the state's foundation program. So much of the local taxes that we receive, we will have to put those monies up to participate in the state's foundation program, in which we will receive about $150 million. Also, there's something called the State Capital Purchase Program. We will be required to put up about $1.5 million to participate in that particular program, in which we'll receive a little over $7 million of state capital purchase dollars. Let's talk about a few highlights that our district has achieved and our board has achieved over the last few years. Our district has attained approximately 3 times the state required 1-month fund balance. In fact, our district is well positioned now, and I mean well positioned post-COVID, and that is extremely important. I know there is a concern by many state officials as to whether some districts may not have made the adjustments that needed to be made post-COVID. Well, I'm proud to say that our board, our superintendent, and the staff has done an excellent job to position our district to ensure that we would not be dependent on those COVID ESSER funds. Our district continues to receive excellent audit opinions. In fact, we have had 0 financial audit opinions, audit findings over the last few years. So we're very, very happy about that. Our district continues the implementation of electronic systems that are more convenient for parents, our staff, and the community at large. We also continue to provide financial professional development with principals and staff, and that's something that we want to continue. We believe that that has helped a lot in reducing audit findings. Our district will be recommending a more competitive salary schedule for several position types in the days ahead. We want to address clerical, maintenance, security, technology, and all of the other position types so that we can be a little bit more competitive or just as competitive as some of the other school districts. A couple of the things that we wanted to keep in mind when addressing these salaries, one is fairness and also sustainability. We want to ensure that when we make that recommendation for those salary increases, that it is sustainable. That's extremely important. 2 to 3 years ago, of course, our district implemented 3 efficient cashless payment systems for parents and community. And you see a list of those systems there on the screen. Our district has set aside over $23 million in reserve accounts for capital renovations, capital technology replacement, security replacement, and vehicle replacement. And you all know, all of us know, that there are times that we need a new roof even on our homes. There are times we need a new air conditioning system for our own homes. We also know that there are times that a piece of technology may go out. So the district has positioned itself by setting aside certain funding sources or certain monies to be able to address these particular needs whenever they come up without having to go into our general fund. So we're very happy about that. Just like any district that has highlights, there are also some challenges that we are focused on. Our district enrollment has continued to decline since 2016, and that's something that we're working on. I'm so thankful to both the board and the superintendent for many of the course offerings that are being provided at this particular time, so that our students will have an opportunity to choose which profession or which course area he or she would like to go into. So we provided numerous career tech offerings, numerous AP courses, foreign language courses. So we are providing those type of offerings for all of our students. Also, one-time federal funds, those COVID dollars, those federal COVID dollars, they were very, very useful for us. Those dollars helped us to do some amazing things for our schools, but we know that those dollars will be depleted effective September 30th of 2024. That is a challenge. But at the same time, we have set monies aside in those reserve accounts to continue our one-to-one initiative, to continue to do those roofs and HVAC systems and meet the other needs for our students. Also, devastating increases in construction costs, it just has been through the roof for the most part. And I don't know whether any of you all have had to do any home repairs lately, but if you have, I'm sure you've seen the escalated costs compared to a few years ago. If you had to get a roof replaced or a new air condition, the cost has been very, very high as a result of inflation and shipping delays. Then we have a look at our student ADM over the last several years. And we see that we have lost quite a few students over the last 5 years. Again, I think what the board has done to address this situation, I think has been amazing. In fact, I think we're only like 200 or 300 students down from the prior year. So we're beginning to see our student population to level off a little bit, or those losses to level off a little bit. And I think that is, again, due to increased test scores, also course offerings, and several of the other things that the board and the superintendent are doing. Our district operates off basically 5 different fund sources. First, there's our general fund. And our general fund is our major fund source. It speaks to the general operations of the school district, and our general fund will include our state dollars, which is those state foundation dollars, which is our largest source of revenues, as well as our local tax dollars, our ad valorem taxes, or property taxes is what a lot of people would call them. Also, our sales taxes, donations from various communities and legislators, city councilors, and county commissioners. All of that would be termed general fund dollars. Special revenue funds are mainly our federal dollars. The grand majority, over 90% of our special revenue funds are our federal dollars. Also included in special revenue are our local school public dollars. For example, you may have some local schools that may participate in various sports, whether it's football or basketball. So those admissions dollars that come into that school will be termed special revenue funds, because those dollars will be expended at that particular school. The school, each one of our schools have its own bank account, and those dollars, of course, they are monitored, but at the same time, those dollars are expended at that particular school. As I stated, athletic concessions and those type of funding sources or types of local school public funds. Capital project fund speaks to the renovation and the building of schools. So it's the building of new schools or the renovation of schools. And so we do receive, as I stated, those state capital purchase dollars, about $7 million in state capital purchase dollars. But when that ad valorem tax passed, it also allowed us to utilize over half of those dollars to build and renovate schools as well. And I'll talk about that in a little while. The debt service fund is the payment of long-term debt. We will be letting bonds within the next few months. And that would allow us to go ahead and start really start our building program. Our fiduciary fund are non-public local school dollars. Now, earlier I stated that special revenue local school dollars include local school public funds. Fiduciary funds are non-public local school funds. For example, those dollars are more club type dollars. the HOSA Club, the FBLA Club. And so those dollars are generated or raised by the students or the instructor of those particular clubs. And those dollars can only be expended by those particular clubs. It cannot be expended on the entire school population. It's mainly for that particular club that raises those particular dollars. There we see our total budget proposal for fiscal year 2025. We see our general fund, projected revenues about $277 million. Expenditures about $276 million. We see our special revenue fund, which is mainly our federal dollars. Also, our debt service fund, the payment of long-term debt, capital projects fund, the building and renovation of schools, expendable trust fund, non-public school dollars. Again, these are non-public school dollars. So we see our total budgeted expenditures as well as our total budgeted revenues. And there we see our total projected revenues for fiscal year 2025 of over $700 million. So in this particular presentation, it also includes those capital dollars, and it also would include those capital expenditures as it relates to the letting of the bonds. And I will talk about each one of these funds separately. First, let's start with our general fund. Again, we see total revenues of $277 million, expenditures, and also we see our projected excess revenues over expenditures of $2,182,000. So we're projecting our revenues to exceed our expenditures about $2.1 million. Let me also say that this is a very, very conservative budget. We wanted to ensure that we captured all of the costs. In fact, we may have inflated the cost just by a small percentage to ensure that we captured any unknown circumstances. Madam President, I also want to say, as it relates to this particular budget, although you would note on your agenda that it says a salary schedule with a 2% state mandated raise, in this particular budget, it also includes the projected salary schedule if the board were to approve that. Now, if it's not approved, that means our excess of revenues over expenditures will be more than the $2.1 million. But we went ahead and included those additional costs as it relates to the salary schedules that we talked about earlier, just in case the board does approve that. So I want to go ahead and state that. And if any board member have any questions about that, I'd like to stop and provide that opportunity. Yes, ma'am.
I do. Okay, so you're saying the money that, as it's written right now, is in this budget.
Yes, ma'am.
So if it's not approved and it has to be adjusted, we still can count on those dollars being in the budget.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. We just have to adjust accordingly.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. We're projecting that total raise, not the 2% raise, because 2% raise is a lot less.
Right.
But the total cost of the increase that we talked about is a little less than $2.6 million. Right. That's already included in the expenditures of this budget. The board chooses not to approve that, then we can add that 2.6 to that 2.2 there, and now you're projecting about $4.8 to $5 million as it relates to the increase of revenues over expenditures. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the state is awarding a 2%.
Yes, ma'am.
We're adding 1% with a total of 3% if we pass it.
Yes, in some steps there is 1%, and most steps with most employees, there may be a little bit more than an additional 1%. For example, in clerical, I think it's 4% in our clerical staff.
So the state's giving 2, and then in that case, we would give 2 if it's approved.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions?
Yes, ma'am. We thought it was important to go ahead and include all of that in the budget. So if the board does approve it, then we know we already have those costs already manufactured in the budget. There we have our general fund. State funds makes up the largest portion of our general fund, mainly the state's foundation program. Again, the state's foundation program is our largest source of revenues in our district. Then we see a little bit of federal dollars, that's mainly ROTC dollars that we receive, along with our local dollars. Majority of our local dollars are our property taxes. We also receive a 1-cent sales tax from our county in an amount of about $32 million. So that includes our local property taxes and local sales taxes. Other revenue and fund sources, these would be other sources such as indirect cost, which is a small administrative fee that our district charges our federal programs or assess to the federal programs in order to run those particular programs. And there we see a breakdown of our total general fund. As we see, our state revenues make up the largest portion of our total total general fund, about 64.41%. We see local making up about 31.55%. Before that 12 mil tax was passed, local was 25%, which was not a really good amount. And so we're very, very thankful to the Montgomery community for approving that 12 mil tax. And we also are very appreciative of our community for renewing the 3 mil tax. So we're very, very happy about that. Now, if we were to consider all of the local taxes we receive, then we're looking at about a 36.1% total local revenue amount, a percentage. I did compare this to Huntsville and to Birmingham, which are two districts that have somewhat similar demographics to us. Huntsville's local revenues make up about 50% of their total revenues. So they are really, putting in a lot of local revenues to support education. In Birmingham, they make up about 45% of their total local revenues, or indeed, yes, ma'am.
You're comparing two city systems to a county system, is that correct?
It is. Those are two city systems. But we also are looking at the demographics there as well. And both of them have a little bit of urban type touch, and that's what we were looking at as well. Yes, ma'am. Our state foundation program, which is our largest source of dollars, basically fund our districts based on student population. And so based on the number of students you receive, based on grade levels, then that will equate into the amount of dollars that we receive. And so for the 25,351 students that we are funded on for fiscal year 2025, out of a state amount of 720,000 students, that makes up about 3.52% of the total student population. So we'll receive approximately 3.5% roundabout of the total state revenues as it relates to the state foundation program. But let's note, and I always say this, that the difference in the quality of education is based on that local support. So it is so important that we continue to locally support our schools, whether it be in the area of property taxes, whether it be in the area of sales taxes, whether it be in the area of city and county appropriations. We must continue to locally support our schools. By doing so, we have increased seasonal cash flows, we have ability to employ more locally funded teacher units, which is what this new 12 meals did. It allowed us to provide more teacher units. We were able to provide more foreign language teacher units. We was able to provide more career tech offerings. We was able to provide more career tech Pam, could you think of some of the other ones? Was career tech, art and music units. So it was a number of different offerings that we were able to provide as a result of the increased tax revenue. And again, we see ability to fund enhanced learning opportunities for our students. And those are the things we want to continue. In fact, we want to expound on those particular items. Again, we see a comparison of our FY25, FY24 student population, a loss of about 400 students. And of course, anytime we lose students, we automatically lose dollars. So that's why it's so important that we stabilize our student population. And again, I think many of the things that the superintendent and the board are doing now is helping in that particular feat. We see that based on our student population for fiscal year 2025, there'll be a drop of about 20 teacher units. If I were to multiply that 20 teacher units times, let's just say $80,000, that's about a loss of about $1.6 million. So we want to continue to move towards the stabilization of our student population. We see the principals. One of the things that we're very happy to see, and I'm hoping that the state even do more towards this, is assistant principals. This year, this past legislative session for FY 2025, for every 300 students in an elementary school will be funded for a half of an assistant principal. It was, our elementary school had to have almost 700 kids to earn one assistant principal, or 500 students to earn a half of an assistant principal. Now it's 300 students, you earn a half an assistant principal at an elementary school. At a middle school, that number also went down some too. So for every 300 students at a middle school, we earn a full assistant principal. Was over 500 students, you earn that assistant principal. But the state, and I had some communications today with several people at the state, and they said they are going to attempt to reduce that even more, which would increase the number of assistant principal units at our schools. They said assistant principals and counselors were two other areas that they want to continue to work on, so that we could have more of those staffing types at our schools to help support our students. We see our total loss units of about 13.09 for fiscal year 2025. This slide basically shows our this slide basically shows the amount of state revenues that we'll receive and the amount of the local match that the district will have to put up. I stated earlier that we will have to put up about $35.4 million or $34.5 million of our local tax dollars in order to receive the $154 million of state foundation dollars. And that's what this slide shows. So this slide basically shows that we'll to spend at least $100 million, $101 million of salaries on our employees. We are required to spend over $38.8 million in fringe benefits, whether it's insurance, retirement, Social Security, matching Social Security, matching Medicare, matching unemployment on behalf of our employees. The other current expenditures, those are expenditures that we pay for support employees, whether it's the custodians, whether it's our administrative assistants, whether it's our logistics or maintenance staff or bookkeepers. All of our support employees are paid out of other current expense. Other current expense dollars are also utilized for the payment of utilities, the air, the heat, gas, and all other various utility sources. Also, student materials and supplies, each teacher will be provided a $900 budget in order to purchase materials and supplies for his or her classroom. Last year it was $1,000, so that amount went down by $100. But that $100 was made up in another area that I'll speak about in just a second. So each teacher will be provided $900 to expend on his or her classroom for his or her students. Technology will be provided $500 per technology unit, $137.72 for library enhancement, $100 for professional development. Now, all of these dollars will have to be voted on by the teacher population, or the teacher body, I should say, or certified teacher body. So they would derive a 5-member committee, and of course the principal will have a representative in that particular committee, and they will vote as to how they will expend their technology funds at their particular school. Same thing with library enhancement. That committee may determine, hey, we need more library books or whatever it may be for our school, where they'll present a budget to the entire teacher body. The teacher body will vote on that budget. Then if it's approved, then that will be what will be enacted. Same thing with professional development. There will be a budget committee that will vote on professional development and common purchases. Common purchases is a line item that used to be in the state budget about 10 or 15 years ago. And this is the first year that line item has come back. And this is where that same budget committee will make a determination about what the entire school needs. And then, of course, that committee will put that out to the vote of the teacher body also. And then they'll vote on it. If it's approved, then that would be what's enacted, and that is how those dollars would be expended. But all of it, for the most part, everything except the student materials and supplies will be voted on by the teacher body or by the certified body of that particular school. So there is input as it relates to those particular funds. Textbooks, we see $100 per student. It's what will be funded for fiscal year 2025. And we see last year was $75 per student. So we was glad to see a little bit of increase in textbooks for fiscal year 2025. I forgot what adoption is in right now. Is it math adoption or science adoption that's in right now? The what now? The science adoption? Okay, the science adoption, okay. So the state, they usually do an adoption each year, a textbook adoption each year. Sometimes they'll skip a year or so, and so those dollars are utilized to expend on textbooks. In fact, it would not be a surprise after the textbook committee meets that our textbook budget may be $4 million, or it may cost us $4 million. So we'll receive $2.5 million, so we know that we'll have to make up that other $1.5 million to purchase the textbooks that are needed for our students. One of the things that I was happy to see this year, in this year's the budget that was just passed, was that the state provided a supplemental allocation for textbooks. They also provide a supplemental allocation for nurses, and we was glad to see that as well. So those dollars would also assist us in purchasing textbooks for our students. Someone asked me the other day, could those textbooks, could we purchase virtual textbooks or textbooks that are online or off the computer? And the answer to that is yes. Now, the actual amount of money that we will actually receive from the state, from the foundation program, is $153.5 million. That is the amount that they will actually send us over 12 months, $153.5 million. So if I were to add that $153.5 million plus the amount of the match, that would give you the $188,052,400. So this slide where it says foundation program, state and local funds, which includes the local match, of $34.5 million. This slide basically shows exactly what the state will provide us for fiscal year 2025, which is $153,500,000 compared to $151 million last year. We see there's an increase of about $2.5 million. Well, I stated earlier that once you lose student population, that you automatically lose funding. And that is the case, but we see there's an increase in funding on this particular slide. That is because of that 2% state mandated raise. There was a state mandated raise approved by the legislature of 2% that will be enacted October 1st of 2024. And that's what that legislation spells out, that it must be granted by October 1st, 2024. School nurse program, we see about $2.8 million. So the state have increased the amount of money for nurses. The state has a goal of funding at least one nurse per school. That is the goal, to have at least one nurse per school. Now, the state did approve for an additional supplemental allocation for nurses for fiscal year 2025. We do not know whether those monies will be there again for 2026, but we're happy to see that support for 2025. Isn't that correct, Dr. Williamson? Technology coordinator. We see a little bit of money for technology coordinator to help pay the salary of our technology coordinator. Transportation operations will be funded about $9 million compared to about $9.2 million in fiscal year 2024. So we see a little loss of about $118,000 in transportation dollars. These are the dollars that we utilize to transport our students to and from school. Again, transportation dollars are dollars that we utilize to transport students to and from school. We have a staff of over 160 bus drivers. We also have a mechanic staff. We have bus aides. So we have a number of different transportation salaries in which these funds go towards. Also for the maintenance of the buses, those dollars are used. Fleet renewal, about $1.4 million. So we had a little bit of increase in fleet renewal this year. Fleet renewal is based on the number of buses that we have that are less than 10 years old. So for every bus that is less than 10 years old, we receive $7,500. And that's how we get fleet renewal. Capital purchase dollars. These are the dollars in which we're required to put up about $1.5 million of our local tax revenues in order to participate in the state capital purchase program. So again, we'll put up about $1.5 million, and of course the state provide us about $7.3 million in state capital purchase dollars. These dollars are utilized to pretty much maintain schools, fix the air conditioning, the roof, or some of the other maintenance requirements that are needed for our schools. At-risk dollars, about $932,000 for fiscal year 2024. These dollars are available to assist school districts to help support those students who may be at risk of dropping out of school. So we want to do everything we possibly can to support those students and to ensure that they're getting, whether it's mental health supports or whatever other type supports that they need to keep them in school. We want our student population or our student body in school. Career Tech, these are dollars that assist with our Career Tech students, about $145,000. Sorry, Dr. Sibley, we lost about $32,000 for fiscal year 2025. So, but we'll supplement that somehow. And so we see our total state funds of about $175 million compared to $172 million last year. Again, we still lost state foundation program funds because we had a loss of student population. But because there was a 2% state mandated raise, also there was an increase in benefit cost, is why we see that $3.1 million increase. And there again, we see our local match, where we'll put up $34.5 million in order to participate in the state's foundation program, and the $1.5 million in order to participate in the state capital purchase program, where we'll get the $7.2 million. Let's look at some of our other revenues in our general fund, about $259,000. As I stated earlier, the majority of that is ROTC funds. We have ROTC, I think, at all of our traditional high schools, if I'm not mistaken. And I think we have most of the what are they called? The Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. I don't know if we have all of them, but I know we have most of them at our. We do have all of them. Okay, we don't have Navy. Okay, so we have everything but Navy, everything but Navy. So that's pretty good, because I know there's a lot of high schools, in large high schools, only offer one type of a military service. So that's pretty good that we're offering 3. See our property taxes that we're projecting in the general fund, the property tax. Now, half of our 12 mil property taxes are budgeted in our capital projects fund, because that law stated that on that 12 mil tax, that half of it is to be used for teachers and many of the other offerings that we're provided, and the other half is to be used for capital, which is the construction and building of our schools. We also see our sales and gasoline tax. Sales tax makes up about $32 million of that, and the rest of it is the gasoline tax. And of course, we see our other income as well. Then, of course, we see our indirect costs and our transfers in, field trips and those type of revenues. All school districts in the state of Alabama operates off of 8 functional areas of expenditures. The first area of expenditures, instructional, or expenditures that are concerned with the interaction between teachers and students. So any expenditure related to the interaction between teacher and student will be instructional expenditures. The major instructional expenditure would be teacher salaries and benefits. Again, the major expenditure for instructional services will be teachers' salaries and benefits. Also included teacher material and supplies that we just spoke about. A copier that a teacher may use. So any good or service that teacher may utilize to provide direct instruction would be instructional services expenditures. Instructional support services or expenditures concerned with providing supervision and support to facilitate the instruction, the instructors for those students. So again, instructional support services would be basically the principals who support our teachers so that they can provide direct instruction to our students. The assistant principals, they will support our teachers so they can provide direct instruction to the students. Counselors, librarians, all of those would be termed instructional. Reading coaches also would be instructional support services to provide those supporting services to our teachers. Operation and maintenance, as one may guess, would be activities concerned with keeping our buildings clean, safe, and secure. So operation and maintenance would be security. We have our security guards here. Our maintenance staff would be operation and maintenance. Our utilities, all of the utilities are part of our operation expenditures. The logistics department is part of our operation and maintenance service expenditures. Auxiliary services or activities of a subsidiary capacity. In the general fund, auxiliary services are mainly our transportation services. Transporting our students to and from school would be our auxiliary services. General administrative, of course, as one may guess, that would be activities concerned with establishing and administering policy for the board. That would be the board, superintendent, finance department, human resources, legal department. So all of those departments that help or help assist in administering policies for the district. Capital outlay, again, activities concerned with establishing and administering architectural engineering, basically the construction and renovation of our schools. So the building of schools and the renovating of schools would be capital outlay. Debt service is the payment of long-term debt. As I stated earlier, we'll be letting bonds over the next several months so that we could really beef up our building program. In fact, I have a meeting with our financial advisor on Tuesday of this upcoming week. Other expenditures, activities, or programs other than those normally considered day school, most of these will be our preschool expenditures and our extended day expenditures. So again, other expenditures would be mainly our preschool and extended day. Also would include summer feeding. And there we see a breakdown of our total projected expenditures for our general fund for fiscal year 2025. One of the things that I like to point out in this particular slide is that we see that the majority of our dollars are going to support the classroom. And that's where we want it to go. We want the majority of our dollars to support student education and our interaction between the teachers and students. Also, we got $56 million of expenditures related to supporting the teachers, the assistant principals, counsel, librarians, to support the teachers to provide instruction. So that's over $212 million. Yeah, over $212 million of the total $286 million that is going towards instruction. And again, that's where we want our dollars to go towards the supporting of our students. And there we see a breakdown of our total instructional expenditures of about 74%. We see operation and maintenance at about 13%. Operation and maintenance, again, keeping our schools and buildings safe, secure. Our auxiliary services, that's transportation services, busing our students to and from school. Other expenditures, mainly pre-K and extended day would be other expenditures. Again, a recap of our total general fund. We see a projected $288 million. Total expenditures projected $286 million. Excessive revenues over expenditures $2.2 million. We're projecting to have a beginning fund balance of about $80.5 million. So we're projected to end fiscal year 2024 with about $80.5 million, which would be the beginning balance for 2025. Let's just say $80.6 million. Again, we're projecting an ending fund balance of $82.7 million, which is the excess revenue plus that beginning fund balance of about $82.8 million. We have a required 1-month fund balance of about $23.8 million. Again, we stated earlier that our district has positioned itself well. We have about 3 times the state requirement as it relates to our general fund. And I just want to state again, Madam President, that this is a very conservative budget. Again, we wanted to make sure we captured all of the costs. So if there's anything unexpected, then we can account for that. We thought that was to be extremely important, especially with an economy that kind of fluctuates so much. So we wanted to kind of present a budget that was on the safe side. There we see those projected revenue funds. Again, those dollars are already set aside, about $23.1 million that we have set aside for the roofing, HVAC, and all of those things. Technology replacement. We want to continue our one-to-one devices for our students. one of the things that COVID taught us was that we need to be better prepared. So now if something were to happen where we had to shut down our schools, then we can immediately provide our students with a device, an electronic device, so that we can continue educating our students. And that was extremely important to us, and that's why we developed that technology replacement account after COVID dollars were exhausted. And these are things we will continue to build on in an effort to be prepared for any unforeseen circumstance. We see security replacement of about $3 million. We know in today's time how important it is to have this security equipment and security staff and everything we need to protect our students. So that's something we will continue to increase as well. Also for our district fleet, about $1.1 million is the amount that we have set aside or have reserved for vehicle replacement. And that's just a breakdown of our projected beginning fund balance. Again, we see we're projecting a total beginning fund balance of about $80.6 million. Now we'll briefly talk about our special revenue fund. Special revenues are mainly our federal dollars. So about 92% of our total revenue, special revenue, are federal dollars, which would include Title I dollars, which are monies that are pretty much granted based on student population and poverty. Also child nutrition dollars or special revenue dollars, career tech dollars, special revenue dollars, special ed or IDEA Part B dollars are special revenue dollars. The thing about special revenue dollars is that they are categorical in nature, which means they can only be expended for the purpose they were granted for. For example, our special ed dollars can only be expended on our special needs students or with our special needs students. Tech dollars can only be expended on our career tech students. So those dollars do have strings tied to them. We can't just expend them any way we want to. We have to expend them in accordance with the law. And there we see a breakdown of our special revenue dollars, and we see the majority of those dollars are our federal dollars. The local portion of those dollars are basically our local school funds. As I stated, that we do have public local school dollars, which is also part of our special revenue. But we see the majority of it, 92% of it, of course, again, are federal dollars. And there we see the breakdown, where 92% is federal dollars. And one of the biggest decrease we'll see is right there. We see CARES ESSER, that's the second line from the bottom. That's those COVID ESSER funds, the $71.2 million. Those are the dollars that have been will be depleted as of September 30th, 2024. So we see we do not have any funds on that particular line item for 2025 because those dollars are now depleted. I do want to go back to the slide. I want to say one other thing about this. I want to thank the board and the superintendent for recognizing that, ahead of time, that these dollars was going away. And so that we knew that these were dollars that we could not be dependent upon. We knew that. And so we made the appropriate decisions. Some of the decisions were tough to ensure that we will remain on a good financial standing. So that was extremely important. Madam President, do we have any questions about that? Okay. there we see a breakdown of those other special revenue dollars. The CNP daily sales that I also stated about the local school public funds, which is about almost $3 million of those funds. And there's a breakdown of all of the expenditures as it relates to our special revenue. We notice that instructional is still the majority. However, the feeding of the students, child nutrition, makes up about 14% of the total expenditures. The auxiliary services is child nutrition, or the feeding of the children. And there we see a recap of our total special revenue fund. We're projecting the beginning balance of about $10.5 million. The majority of that is child nutrition funds and local school funds, that beginning balance there. Again, the majority of it is child nutrition funds and local school funds. Very, very proud to say that the operations of our child nutrition has been amazing. There are a number of school districts that have to pass through quite a bit of general fund dollars to their child nutrition program to help supplement that particular program. But our program is ran so efficiently and effectively that we're not having to transfer any monies from our general fund to CNP. So I want to just thank our child nutrition staff. I see our child nutrition director is here, so I want to just thank you and thank your entire staff for the great job you're doing. Next, our debt service fund speaks to the long-term debt of the school district. Again, we'll be letting bonds a little bit within the next few months. Also, there is an amount of our local new ad valorem tax that are part of the capital projects fund that we'll be moving over to debt service in order to pay the long-term debt after we let those particular bonds. We already have some bonds that was let, I think back in 2015 and 2017. Those bonds are pretty much about to come off our books in a few more years. So we do have some state funds in which we leverage some of our bonds. In fact, we usually transfer some money from our state capital projects fund to debt service in order to pay those particular bonds. But as I stated, a couple of them will be coming off our books in a few more years. That state source also would include our fleet renewal funds. Those are dollars that are utilized to buy new school buses. We see we're projecting to expend about $22 million in debt service expenditures for fiscal year 2025. Capital Projects Fund, these are dollars that are utilized to build schools and to renovate schools. And of course, as I stated earlier, that part of the ad valorem tax that we receive will be utilized to let bonds so that we're looking at borrowing probably between $200 to $300 million to let bonds so that we can build and renovate schools. That is the intent. And we're making sure that we have the monies to pay that long-term debt based off of the property taxes. And there we have a recap of those particular funds. The advancing technology funds are dollars that the state provided. In fact, it's provided those funds over the last several years. We're very, very happy about that, called A&T funds. It allows us to also do quite a bit of maintenance on our buildings. We was glad to see that. We granted $25.8 million for fiscal year 2025 to be able to do so. And we see our proceeds from bonds as well. Expendable trust fund, are dollars more of a non-public school revenues. These are the dollars that are raised by the clubs, the FBLA club or the HOSA club or the various clubs that we have at our many schools. And those monies are raised by those particular clubs and are expended by those particular clubs. And there again, we have our full annual operating budget projected for fiscal year 2025. Want to say again that this budget does include those particular raises. It's also a very conservative budget. Again, we want to ensure that we capture anything that may be unforeseen. Madam President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Watts. At this time, I'd encourage those of us who turned off our mics to avoid feedback, go ahead and turn your mics back on. And also, I do remember asking for approval of the agenda, but I'll be very honest, I don't remember carrying the vote. So at this time, I will remind us that Ms. Mitchell moved that we approve our agenda. Ms. Watkins-Smith seconded that. At this time, I'll ask, is there discussion about the agenda before us? We do have to complete this so that the vote that we want to take will be official. I'm hearing no discussion, we'll take that vote. All those in favor of this agenda before us, please let it be known by raising your hands. It is unanimous. Thank you for indulging me. At this time, we are ready to consider for approval. I'm sorry, no. At this time, I will ask you, are there questions, additional questions of Mr. Watts pertaining to this budget?
I have.
Okay.
Are we starting here?
Absolutely, thank you. Go right
And I
ahead.
have no idea if this is on. I think it is. Mr. Watts.
Yes, ma'am.
Who houses the at-risk dollars? Are they, what department is responsible for at-risk dollars?
Dr. Williams helps us administer the at-risk dollars, student support services. A lot of those dollars are used at our alternative school, alternative education. Also, we have prevention specialists and various other type of supports utilized for those particular dollars.
Thank you.
Yes,
One more. The 1.1 mil for vehicle replacement.
Yes, ma'am.
That's different from fleet, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
These dollars are set aside for district type vehicles outside of buses.
What they driving?
Ma'am?
Oh,
you got the maintenance department. Yes, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Portis. Ms. Cloud.
Good question, though. Good
Yes.
question. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Watts, from
Yes, ma'am.
Tuesday to today, the total revenues are different. You want to
Yes.
explain that
Yes.
since people were listening?
Yes, and that's where I stated that I did get with Volker to talk about what our capital expenditures will be, and they provided me a cash flow regarding what they're projecting the capital expenditures would be for fiscal year 2025, along with letting enough bonds so that general fund would be reimbursed. Thus far, general fund has been pretty much funding all of the capital program. So general fund is due over $40 million back after we let those bonds.
That's right. The difference is 328 million.
Yes, ma'am.
105, 478.
That's correct.
Additional questions? Ms. Watkins-Smith?
I don't know if it's on either. I'm going to hope that it is. I wanted to know, and they'll let me know if they can't hear me. Just a quick question. You were talking about the bonds, and you said that there are still some outstanding bonds. If we could just get a list of those bonds
Sure.
and the amount.
Yes, yes.
And
I think. Okay, no, you go ahead. I think one of those bonds were used to assist at Park Crossing with the Park Crossing, and I'm thinking the new Carver at the time. But I'll get a list of those for you.
And then my other question, together budget, but are there any forecast threats that you foresee outside of rising costs for materials that we know that is fluctuating right now? But are there any other forecasted threats that you see that could impact our budget where we may have to prepare to adjust?
That is a really good question, and I promise you, Ms. Smith, if I can answer that question, I probably would be a multi-millionaire. Multi-millionaire. No, ma'am, not at this particular time. In fact, I think the Fed is expecting interest rates to go down just a little bit in the next coming days, which should help a little bit with cost. So I don't foresee anything else, but we didn't foresee COVID either. So it's just something hard to project.
And
The thing is to just try to be ready for it, have those reserve accounts, build a budget that is somewhat conservative to be prepared just in case those things take place.
you answered it.
Yes, ma'am.
So you need to write the book.
Thank you.
I think that I agree that that was a very foreseeing kind of question. I was concerned about those outstanding bonds that you talked a little bit about. But one of the things we're going to have to look at as we proceed, fortunately, interest rates are going down,
Yes.
but we don't want to move any low interest rates into high interest rates. So when you give us that breakdown in the near future, will you also let us know what kinds of interest rates we were looking at?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Copeland, I'm glad you said that, because I've already stated to our financial advisor, and I will say it to any underwriter, anyone, that the bonds that we currently have that may be at 1 or 2%, if we, let's just say we go out and let bonds, and let's just say in today's market is at 3-point-some% or 4%, then we are not going to refinance those bonds that are at 1% or 2% and include that in that particular deal. And they know that that's not something they would need to come to me with, so.
I just had one more. I saw our line item for instructors. When we contract employees to do certain things, what does that what fund does that come out of?
When we
When we
contract,
contract, yes.
it depends on what level of service that is. If it's, let's just say if it's a retired teacher.
Right.
We contract with a retired teacher, that's gonna be an instructional. Let's say if it's a retired principal or something that fits in the instructional support services, then it's gonna be an instructional support. Or let's just say it's some type of maintenance contract, then it's gonna be an operation and maintenance category.
Additional questions? Additional questions? Okay, hearing none.
I'm sorry. I was sleeping at the wheel. Did you ever get our Standards & Poor's rating?
Ma'am?
Did our Standards & Poor's rating, you were hoping it would go up? Have you heard?
Not yet, not yet. That's will be a conversation that we'll be having with the financial advisor when we meet Tuesday.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you again, Mr. Watts.
Thank you.
At this time, we are ready to consider for approval one item, fiscal year 2025 budget that does include salary schedules with our state mandated 2%. Dr. Brown.
Madam President, I recommend for approval the FY 2025 budget as stated and presented by Mr. Watts.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. You've heard the recommendation of the superintendent. Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation.
Is there a second?
I second it.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept the superintendent's recommendation regarding fiscal year 2025 budget to be approved. Is there discussion? All those in favor, raise your hands. It is unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Watts. We have negotiated and come up with a day for our rescheduled meeting. Our rescheduled school board meeting will be Monday at 4 o'clock back at our leadership building. We thank you for your attention, for your time, for your presence.
Madam,
This meeting,
4 o'clock.
I'm sorry, 5 o'clock. I've gotten accustomed to 4. 5 o'clock p.m. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.